Hi friends, Chrissy here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I'm so glad that you are here today. For the last couple of years, I have done Christian nonfiction read-alongs here on my channel, and I want that to continue in 2025 because I absolutely love connecting with you guys as we read some Christian nonfiction books. I know there are other book clubs now who are doing this. Keisha has Revive Book Club. I know that Tiffany and Deea do a book quarterly, I believe, as well, with Chrissy's Purple Library. And I am not the only one doing this. I know there might be other groups out there as well, but I just really love it. I love being able to connect with you guys in issues of faith and in our hearts and our spirits and learning and growing together. And I think that that's really important and fun. So I have a few books here to tell you about, and I'll give you the chance to know ahead of time what we're working with for 2025. So in February, which is coming up pretty soon, in February, we're going to be reading Defiant Joy by Stacey Eldridge. The tagline on this one says, "Taking hold of hope, beauty, and life in a hurting world." And don't we all need that right now? Joy is my word for the year, and so I'm very excited to read this all with you. The back of this one says, "We are called to live, and miraculously to live with joy. We all spend a lot of energy reaching for happiness, but we are never quite able to hang on to it. Real life happens, and our circumstances take us on an emotional roller coaster ride. So the Bible's call to be joyful always sounds almost crazy and out of reach, but it doesn't have to be. Joy is meant to be ours, a joy that is defiant in the face of this broken world. This joy is not simply happiness on steroids. It's the unyielding belief that sorrow and loss do not have the final say. It's the stubborn determination to be present to whatever may come and to interpret both goodness and grief by the light of heaven." In Defiant Joy, Stacey Eldridge invites us with courage, candor, and tender vulnerability to a place beyond sadness or happiness. She shows us how to maintain a posture of holy defiance that neither denies nor diminishes our pain, but dares to live with expectant, unwavering hope. It sounds so good. It sounds so good. Because I am a little bit late in making this announcement, we are only going to be doing 3 weeks for this book, but it has 12 chapters, so I feel like that's really perfect. It's only 210 pages altogether, so it's not very long. So we will have our first discussion of the first 4 chapters on February 9th. So we're not going to start right up on this on the 2nd. We're going to start on the 9th. And I hope that you will choose to read this along with me and hopefully some others in February. In May, we are going to be reading Whisper by Mark Batterson. The tagline of this one says, "How to Hear the Voice of God." And I think that that is something I need to work on and practice, being still and listening more and not just pouring out all of my woes to the Lord. It says on the back, "God still speaks. Do you know how to hear his voice? The voice that spoke the cosmos into existence is the same voice that parted the Red Sea and made the sun stand still in the midday sky. One day this voice will make all things new, but it's also speaking to you now. That voice is God's voice, and what we've learned from scripture is that he often speaks in a whisper, not to make it difficult to hear him, but to draw us close." Oh man, I feel like this is going to be really good. Mark Batterson has written quite a few other books. I actually haven't read anything by him, but I'm really excited to try one. So hopefully you'll join along in May in reading Whisper by Mark Batterson. Then in August, we're going to do one that's maybe like a modern classic in the Christian faith, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. He also has The Case for Faith, but this is the one that I have on my shelves, and I've not read any of them. But Lee Strobel was a journalist. I believe he was an atheist and wanted to prove God wrong or something, and dug into the Bible and to other works and tried to discover the truth. And this one says, "A journalist's personal investigation of the evidence for Jesus." So this one's going to be all about Jesus, and I'm really excited about that. Is there credible evidence that Jesus of Nazareth really is the Son of God? Retracing his own spiritual journey from atheism to faith, Lee Strobel, former legal editor of the Chicago Tribune, cross-examines a dozen experts with doctorates from schools like Cambridge, Princeton, and Brandeis, who are recognized authorities in their own fields. He challenges them with questions such as, how reliable is the New Testament? Does evidence for Jesus exist outside the Bible? Is there any reason to believe the resurrection was an actual event? And his point-blank questions make this remarkable book read like a captivating, fast-paced novel. But it's not fiction. It's a riveting quest for truth about history's most compelling figure. So I'm really excited about this one. We will be reading it in August, and I would love to have you join in. then I need your help a little bit. I'm having a hard time making a decision. For November, I have 2 choices. So I'm going to tell you about both of them and then let you guys decide. So put which one you would prefer in the comments. I may actually do a poll as it gets closer to if it's too close to tell. But here are the 2 that I'm deciding between. I didn't want another white guy because we've got Mark Batterson and Lee Strobel. Stacey Aldridge is a female. I wanted either another woman author or a person of color. So I have a person of color and I have a female author. So here's the 2 choices. So the first off, we have Remember God. This is by Annie F. Downs. And doesn't that look like a November book? Actually, they both do. But Remember God, Annie F. Downs is a woman that I follow because she is single and about my age. And so I love her Bible studies and thoughts on singleness. She has a book called That Sounds Fun and like a lot about joy. Actually, I should look into some of her books as I'm just rediscovering joy this year. But this one says, I know God is loving. I know he's good. I know he's big and powerful, but sometimes I wonder if he's really kind, really deeply always kind. Is he? Christians love to talk about how God is in control, but that's harder to grasp when things aren't going like you thought they would, when your life looks quite different than you imagined. For centuries, God's people have been building altars to him to remind themselves and the people around them of his work, his goodness, his kindness, stacks of stones, altars, temples, cathedrals. Why? Because they believed God and wanted to remember him. In the back of my mind, God reminds me that he is the same trustworthy God, the one who always finishes the stories he starts. This is my story of wrestling with our God who gives a limp and a blessing, a God who is always kind, even when my circumstances feel the opposite. God is who he says he is. He is kinder than you imagine. In a world where it's easy to forget who he is, we will not. We will remember God. So that just sounds like it will be really good. It sounds like it'll have some memoir aspects to it as well, which didn't work as well last year with one of the books that we read, but we weren't expecting that, or I wasn't expecting a memoir. But if I know going into it, that's a little bit of what we're getting, then I feel like it will work a little bit better. So that's one option for November. The other option is called Tell Her Story. This is by Nijay K. Gupta. How women led, taught, and ministered in the early church. So in this one, we talk about women from the early church, such as Phoebe, Prisca, Junia, and Nympha. Women were there. For centuries, discussions of early Christianity have focused on male leaders in the church, but there is ample evidence right in the New Testament that women were actively involved in ministry at the frontier of the gospel mission and as respected leaders. Gupta calls us to bring these women out of the shadows by shining light on their many inspiring contributions to the planting, growth, and health of the first Christian churches. We discover the major roles of people such as Phoebe, Prisca, Junia, and Nympha. And when we understand the world in which Jesus and his followers lived and what the New Testament actually attests about women in the churches, we see that women were active participants and trusted leaders all along. They were welcomed by Paul and other apostles and equipped for ministry leadership, instructed others, traveled long distances, and were imprisoned, and once in a while became heroes and giants. The New Testament writers tell their stories. It's time for the church to retell them again and again. I mean, I think that sounds so good. Like early church women and how they were active and integral into church life at the beginning of time, like the beginning of the church. So this is going to be a little bit more theological, a little bit more, have a little bit more depth maybe to it. It might be a little bit harder to read. I see a ton of footnotes, which is great. Yeah, so this is an option. So you have to let me know, which one do you think you would prefer to read in November if you plan on joining in? Remember God or Tell Her Story? So both of those. And you could look into which one might be easier to get your hands on. I got this one from Amazon and this one from a used bookstore. Here's what we will be reading together in 2025. I really hope that you will join in. And if you would like to join me on screen for our lives, which will always be on Sunday afternoons at 4 p.m. Eastern, if you would like to join me on screen, I would love to have you. Let me know that in the comments below as well. I'll start a little note in my phone for each of the books. If you want to do all of them, if you just want to do one of them, let me know and we'll see what we have room for on screen. I have the free version of StreamYard, so I can't have too many people on screen, but I would love to have you join in with me if you're interested in helping to lead the discussion for any of these books. I think that's it. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel. And if you've participated in the read-alongs before, I hope you will join in again this year. I'm really looking forward to reading some of these that have sat on my shelf for quite a while. Honestly, these 3 I've sat on my shelf for quite a while. These 2 are relatively new, or very new. I should say they're very new. I'm excited. I'm excited to get started. So that's all for me. Leave your thoughts, opinions, questions down in the comments below. I always love talking with you down there. And thank you so much for watching. And I look forward to chatting with you in another video very soon. And I hope you get your hands on Defiant Joy to join us in February. All right, that's it. Bye.